Picture this. You're an intelligence analyst, and you're staring at hours of drone footage. Your job is to find one hostile truck in a huge convoy, and you have just seconds to do it. The pressure is unbelievable, right? A single mistake could cost lives. Now imagine doing that for thousands of hours of footage from hundreds of drones, all at the same time. And that right there is the central challenge of modern warfare. We are literally drowning in information. There's just this constant sea of data pouring in from satellites, drones, intelligence reports, you name it. Trying to find the needle in that colossal haystack isn't just hard. For a human, it's becoming flat out impossible. So, militaries are turning to a completely new kind of analyst. One that never sleeps, never gets tired, and can sift through information at a scale that is, frankly, hard for us to even wrap our heads around. This is the promise of artificial intelligence on the battlefield, a promise that really took shape in a huge Pentagon program called Project Maven. Okay, so how did we get here, and where is all this headed? In this explainer, we're going to break it all down. We'll look at the AI-powered battlefield itself. We'll talk about the military's case for speed. Then we'll get into the very real human cost of this new tech, this civil war it kicks off in Silicon Valley, and finally, the big unanswered question at the heart of it all, the responsibility gap. So let's start at the beginning, Project Maven. It kicked off back in 2017, and its goals seemed pretty straightforward. Use AI to automatically scan drone footage to take some of the load off of human analysts. But it very quickly became the cornerstone of a much, much bigger vision for what's called algorithmic warfare. Basically, integrating machine learning into the very core of military operations. Now, you might be asking, why the massive push? Let's dive into why military leaders and defense companies argue that AI isn't just some nice-to-have advantage, but an absolute necessity for survival in the 21st century. And make no mistake, this isn't some small, bottom-up experiment. As this quote makes crystal clear, the directive is coming from the very top. There's a full-on commitment to harnessing AI, and a lot of it is driven by a deep fear of being left behind in a new global arms race. So the crucial point here, it all boils down to one word: speed. The new source of military advantage isn't just having the information, it's having the autonomous processing power to act on it faster than any human ever could. We're talking about compressing a decision-making timeline that used to take days into just a few minutes. That's the game changer they're after. But, and this is a huge but, this relentless race for speed comes at a cost. It raises some profound ethical questions that have sparked fierce debate. And this isn't just theoretical anymore. We are now seeing the real-world consequences play out. 37,000. Just let that number sink in. That's the number of potential human targets an Israeli AI system called Lavender reportedly generated at one point. I mean, to put that in perspective, human analysts could never, ever create a target list that big, that fast. This is the raw power of AI. But it also reveals a huge danger. When a system generates targets way faster than any human can meaningfully check them, what does oversight even mean anymore? And when you hear a term like mass assassination factory being used, not by critics, but by the officers using the systems themselves, it just brings all those abstract fears about algorithmic warfare into terrifyingly sharp focus. It turns out that being efficient at killing isn't the same thing as being just in a war. And this table really breaks down those core fears. First, you've got automation bias. That's where we just start trusting the machine more than our own gut, our own judgment. Then there's dehumanization, where real people are reduced to just data points and probability scores. And all of that leads to the really crucial one, the accountability gap. If a mistake is made, who's actually at fault? The person who wrote the code, the commander who trusted the AI's output, the bad data that trained the system? That question isn't just academic. In fact, it's a moral conflict that has lit a fire in Silicon Valley, sparking a kind of civil war for its soul, pitting the very creators of this technology against the companies they work for. Now, what's so fascinating here is the story this timeline tells. It's a story of a complete 180. In 2018, you have this huge employee protest at Google, a moral stand that actually works and forces the company to pull out of Project Maven. It really felt like a landmark moment. But fast forward just a few years, and the floodgates have just swung wide open. Those ethical red lines from 2018, they seem to have been completely erased. So what changed? Well, it's a mix of things. Huge geopolitical pressures, the massive size of the defense contracts up for grabs, and maybe a new argument from inside the industry that it's better to be involved and have some influence than to just sit on the sidelines. And this right here gets to the very heart of that ideological battle. On one side, you have the creators, the engineers, coming from a place of real concern, saying, hey, we build things to help people, not to be in the business of war. It's a plea to control how their work is used. But on the other side, you've got figures like Palantir's CEO, who argue that view is not only naive, it's actually dangerous. Their case is that with rivals developing AI at a breakneck pace, for Silicon Valley to refuse to help on moral grounds is basically abandoning a patriotic duty and risking national security. It reframes participation not as a moral failure, but as a necessary evil. And it is very clear which argument has been winning in the boardrooms. So this brings us to the final and maybe the most important piece of this whole puzzle, the responsibility gap. It is the one question that hangs over everything we've talked about, and it's the one that experts say we are the least prepared to actually answer.
Look, this isn't some problem for a distant future filled with killer robots. This is a crisis right now. When a final decision is the product of millions of data points, incredibly complex code, and a human operator who's under extreme pressure, the very idea of responsibility starts to just break down.
And that is the ultimate takeaway. The tech is here, it's being used, and it is shaping life and death outcomes on the battlefield as we speak. But our laws, our ethics, our ability to make sure a human is truly in control, none of it has kept up. So we're left with this question. When the code gets it wrong, when the data was flawed, when an innocent person is killed based on nothing more than a probability score, who answers for it? That's the question that sits at the very heart of this new age of warfare.